Hi, my name is Leah Day, and it is a bright, beautiful, sunny day, obviously, and it is time to get back to our quilt-along. This is going to be quilt-along number 17 for the Free Motion Quilting Project. And this week, we're going to learn another new design. Well, technically not new. It was a part of the first 365 designs. And you can see it right here. This is circuit board. And yes, I'm returning to the old practice sandwich simply because I found on Batik Beauty that you really couldn't see what I was doing because the fabric was just so busy. So I'm going to be stitching this out on about a fat quarter size practice sandwich. But I'm also going to show just some photos of what this design looks like over Batik Beauty, so you can continue to follow along with that quilt if you want to, or stitch this design on any project that you have currently in the works. So let's check out Circuit Board and see how this design is quilted in free motion.
So we're going to get started with some very simple, very square U-shapes. So come down, turn some right angles, come back up, and you can see that this is very similar to the U-shape stippling, only now with all right angles. And I know it's far easier to understand what I'm doing if you can hear the machine, so now I'm going to unmute it. Now let's come on down for a new row with a slightly different variation. We're going to come down to form a little U shape and then swing down and around it to form almost a backwards L. This is a slightly more advanced, more intricate version, but if you stitch the exact same thing all the way across your row, you'll really get the hang of it and kind of start feeling more comfortable with the design. Again, let's try another variation, this time thinking about the letter E or F. You're going to come across and down and inside, kind of forming those U shapes horizontally rather than vertically. And then come out and back up. And notice that I kind of messed this one up a little bit. I came out too far on that top one, and when I came up, it ended up making the lines a little too close together right there. It's of course not that big of a deal. I'm certainly not going to rip that out, but circuit board is one of those designs that you really want to try and maintain a consistent distance between all your lines of quilting. And it's a little trickier simply because everything is so boxy and it's quite easy to get a little too close sometimes. So let me unmute so you can hear how to stitch these E's or F's. Now let's try another set of shapes. These are very obviously H's. So you're going to kind of come up and over and then swing around and down. And the tricky part with this one is don't go all the way up to the top, otherwise you won't have space to get out. So you've got to kind of go midpoint down and then over, and that will work out just fine. Whenever it comes to stitching these letters, of course, don't feel like you have to make it look like the letter, unless of course that's what you're going for. This is just simply practice and some shapes that will definitely work to help build your skill when it comes to stitching the more complex version of circuit board. So let me unmute so you can hear how these work too. So now let's check out a much more complex version of circuit board and see how we're combining all of these shapes together to form one really random, really kind of graphic texture where you can't really see how the lines are coming together, or that this is even being stitched, in a very linear way. So the biggest thing to keep in mind is your consistent distance, the spacing between all the lines of quilting. And this is a design that's a little tricky with that, simply because it is very easy to kind of forget, okay, I need to have a ½ inch to get out of here, so I need to stitch in and make sure that I have that much space. It's hard to kind of keep that in your head until you get used to it. I would say give yourself at least one quilt and stitch this throughout the sashing, and by the time you get finished with it, you will feel very comfortable with circuit board. Sashing is a very good choice for this design, simply because it is very based on straight lines and sharp angles, and of course right angles. And so fitting this into a fluid space, into a space with lots of curves, would be a lot more tricky, simply because it's not going to fit consistently against it, and that is going to be a little harder. Your eye is going to always be drawn by the lines that form more of a diagonal because they're inconsistent with the rest of the design. So keep that in mind as you stitch this and play with it on your quilts. Now I'm going to unmute and let you finish up watching how to stitch circuit board in this Batik Beauty block. And here's circuit board in Batik Beauty on a ½ inch scale.
So that's it for this week. I really hope you'll get on your sewing machine and give circuit board a try. This is a really fun texture, and I think a little bit more masculine, kind of on the side of zippeling, another design that we've learned this year. Just make sure to keep all of your angles right angles. Just remember that L shape or the shape of a square. Those are right angles because that's going to help this design look different from zippeling. Of course, link up your blog post and share progress on anything that you've been working on. Of course, we've been away from the quilt-along for several weeks, so if you want to share something that you've been working on or something that you're planning on stitching with circuit board, that'd be great. As you can see from the quilt behind me, this is a quilt of all 365 free motion quilting designs that I shared on the project between 2009 and 2011. These designs are finally being put together in one big quilt, And they've also been put together into a new book, and it is called 365 Free Motion Quilting Designs. So if you want to check that out and learn more about it, definitely go to daystyledesigns.com. Until next time, let's go quilt.